Morning, good morning. We're learning at Succos for Shlema, Balana Chaya Basarach, and Shira Bashalamis. We're on Daf Yutesam and Aleph, two lines up in the wide lines. Boy Ram, Nichlasay Ruach Bebig Day Mao. We're talking about the din that a kain who's ovid with Chisur Begadim. Mechusar Begadim is his avoid does not work. So we got into the din of chatzitza. So we're bringing down a brayso. So we're talking about the following question: big day. If a kain who was doing that avodah and wind got into inside his clothing and blew it out, Mao. The Torah says that the begadim have to be directly on his basar, on his flesh, and since the wind blew it away, it's not lying on his body. Or do you say this is the normal way of what happens when you're wearing something? Kina mao shetachet. So that's another question. What about a louse, which is the singular lashon for lice, a bug? Will that be a chatzitza between him and his clothing? If you have a dead louse, a dead bug, it certainly is a interposition. What if it's alive? Me, I mean, keeping the asav azla ravisahi. Do you say since bugs come and go? I guess in the time of the Gemara, this was normal. Everyone accepted as a fact of life that there were lice and there was nothing you could really do about it. So you say since it comes and goes, it's part of a person's body. It's not considered to be an import in a chatzitza. So I don't in the cup of say maybe if gnats and other bugs, people are used to that. But a louse is very scratchy, it's itchy, so it bothers them. So that is a chatzitza. That's considered something that is interrupting between his basar and the bag. Another question: Offer ma'u sheyichatz. Can dirt, if someone's dirty, is that going to be a chatzitza? So offer vadechayitz. Of course, offer is a chatzitza. It's something, a foreign object. El avak offer ma'u. You're talking about dust. Everything gets slightly dusty. So if a little bit of dust settles on him, he's not mamish dirty, but a little dust, is that a chatzitza? Now this is really going to bother you. If you were bothered by the wind going on the if someone wears his begadim, but by his armpits, the clothing doesn't reach all the way up into his armpits. We have a little give underneath the armpits on our clothing. It doesn't touch, it's not touching. So that space between where the clothing is and his armpit, is that considered a chatzitza? Sorry, being in volak. It's not on his body, and therefore you're missing sorry, and it's a chatzitza. I don't. What do you say? This is the normal way clothes are tailored. It's not considered that it's missing the direct contact between the clothing and his body. What happened if he put his hand into his clothing? He stuck his hand. His hand was cold, so he put it underneath his clothing. Gufa michayis. Do we say since it's part of his body, even though it's part of his body, it still interrupts and it's a chatzitza? I lie. Or do you say no? It's his gufa. It's just like whatever part was supposed to be under him is also part of his body. Nima mahu shatichatz. What's the din of a thread? We already had the Gemara. We had the brayso that we brought. That everyone agreed that a thread is going to be chayitz if it's in between the place where there's normally begadim. A thread certainly interrupts. El nimum doldelis ma'u. It means a thread coming from the actual begadim, not a foreign thread, but a thread from the begadim that's sticking out. Boy Mar Baravashi. Yotza Saira Bebigday Mao. What if the kain has long hair, and the long hair goes down in between his beged and his body? It goes down his shoulders and it goes into his neck, and now it's interrupting. Sari kagufa dami, I love kagufa dami. Is his hair considered part of his body or not? Boy, I'm gonna I'll quickly just get some tissue. By starting late, we gave up the good minion with the rub. That's the 7 o'clock right here. I don't know if you know what's going to be going on at 8 o'clock. Boy Reb Zera. Tefillin Maushi Yechutzu. What's it then? Will tefillin make a chatzitza? Rashi understands this to be, is tefillin considered to be not a literal chatzitza that's interrupting? We've seen very often in the Gemara, chatzitza doesn't always mean an interruption. It could also mean that it's a yiter begadim. It's an extra baguette, that he's wearing something unnecessary. So Rashi understands it in the second interpretation, at least at this point in the Gemara. The Gemara is asking if a kohen wears his tefillin, is that considered like he's wearing an extra thing? Alib the man Amalayla loves man tefillin, who according to the man who says that one can't wear his tefillin at night, which we obviously, I think we hold like that also. That's not a question. Keeping the layla chaytzi, yoim nami chaytzi. Since by night it's not considered not big yaitza mitzvah, so wearing it is certainly going to be an extra baguette. The only reason why it wouldn't be a baguette is because he's been kaim a mitzvah. So that's part of his guf. It's part of something that the Torah requires of him. So it's now looked at as something extra. But if by night anyway, it's not considered something that he could wear. So by Yom, it's also going to be considered. Rashi has an interesting, not the way I would have thought, well, not the way I think one would have thought. Rashi says, since Laila, it would come out then that by Laila you could wear tefillin, because it's not Zman tefillin. So, I'm sorry. Since by Laila you can't wear tefillin, but by day where you're Makai mitzvah you could wear tefillin, it'll come out there's a chumrah of night over by day. And Rashi says it can't be because b'derech klal gabi avoda, Laila is more kal than by Yom. So he says it's always impossible to say if you hold Laila lavs man tefillin that he's not allowed to wear tefillin at night and he's able to wear it by day. I would have thought the vart is that since there's a certain time that tefillin are considered to be extra, and the yita begadim, it's always a yita begadim. I wouldn't have said the kal v'chaymer part of it. But in any case, what the Gemara says is kiti b'ilach. That's not a question. Kiti b'ilach l'manda amalai l'zman tefillin. Kutam mandam who says you could wear tefillin by night. So day and night is all the same. My mitzvah de gufe chayetz, loy chayetz, which is and this is the original question. Since it's something a mitzvah that he has to wear on his guf, it doesn't. It's not considered a chatzitza. So this is what the Torah requires. It's almost like a part of the person's guf. El galgal milso motel kamei de Ravami came to Ravami. Amle Talmud aruchu biyadenu tefillin chaytzetzes. We have come to the conclusion. We know that tefillin chaytzes, a kohen cannot wear tefillin while he's wearing the begad. So it's an extra thing he's wearing. Meisvei kahanim b'avedasim. When the Kahanim are doing the Avodah, when the Leviyim are being Masharis, when they're singing Yisrael b'Mamad, and there was different groups of Yisrael that we had way back in Mayid, we learned about Mamadis, that the different groups of Yidden had to stand by during the Avodah, when they were doing the Karbanos Tzibur, and they were the representatives of the rest of Klal Yisrael. All of these people, they're potter from davening, because the Haisik commits is potter and it's tefillin, they're potter from wearing tefillin. My love, the fact that the Gemara says that when the Yisrael is doing they're doing the Maimed, they're potter, they don't have to wear the tefillin. It's mashma, but all these people, the Kehanim, Leviim, and the Yisraelim, if they were to wear their tefillin, it would be okay. It's just the problem that they're not yaitza their mitzvah of tefillin. They're potter from wearing it. But if it's chaytis, then they're also to do it. It should say not they're potter minat tefillin, but they're also to wear tefillin. It's like the Gemara light. No, Gemara says your deduction is incorrect. If they were to wear it, it would be chaytis. Turin. Why does it say potter minat tefillin? Asurim bibayla. It should say they're also. So come on, keeping the Ikan Levi and Yisrael, the Loi Masnulei, Levi and Israel are not wearing big day kahuna. So they by them you wouldn't be proper to say they're us to wear tefillin. They just have no chiv to wear tefillin, but they could wear it. It's not doing any harm. Also, the loy maslei also b'shem hachitana pturim. We said pater because the kaihanim and the Leviim, but the Leviim and the Israelim, but the kaihanim ein achanami. It would be better to use the lashon asurim, but since we wanted to use the lashon pturim for the others, we used it for them as well. We have a brisa that says if they wore tefillin, it's not chaytzit. At this point, the Gemara switches and says that brisa is not talking about the din of yitur begadim, but rather even Rashi would agree. The Taisus says the whole Gemara is talking about this. There's a different shot than what we said, but even Rashi would agree at this point we're talking about legabi a real chatzitza, that the tefillin are interfering. Hadiyad hadarosh. That which we said that that's the shel rosh, but the shel yad, since it's going in between his sleeve and his basar, it's an actual chatzitza. It's interrupting. The whole din of chatzitza by big dekuna comes from al psari. Rosh nami, it's interrupting between his head and the hat. The Gemara, Tana Saira Hayanira, Tana, we learned a brisa. Saira Hayanira bein tzitzlo mitznefes. There was Kohen Gadol, when he wore his hat, there was a space between his hat and the tzitz. Shesham menichin tefillin. That's where we put the tefillin. So the tefillin were able to be put on without interfering with the hat. The hat was placed further back on his head, and there was room in front of it for his tefillin. So it wasn't a chatzitza. Zok the Gemara. The Gemara continues with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah listed a number of things that if a kohen did it, it's going to passel his avodah. So we said a mechutzer kippurim, if he had got his tefillah and he waited for nightfall, but it's a zav or a matzayr that still has to bring a carbon. His avodah is gonna, the avodah done by a mechutzer kippurim is going to ruin the avodah. Minalan, it's going to pass. The kohen will be mechaper and it's going to be tar. That tells you that a zah or a yeledes or a metzayr or a zava, before she was tar, she was tamei. So that's a reference to mechutzer kippurim, who had a time that she was first tamei.
And we're putting that onto and just like she is, so to the kohen. I mean,
and it says that the pasuk says that a tamei is puzzle. We had this before, right? We had, this is really the Gemara that we had before, that we had all the extra limudim, and we said the last limud is the tell you mechutzer kippurim. So this is just it's really it's a inyan. So Gemara someone who hadn't washed, a goyin who hadn't done his rechitzas yadayim reglayim. So just as a preparation for the next Gemara, every kohen every day when he comes into the Beis Hamikdash has to wash his hands and feet. A kohen gadol on Yom Kippur has to wash his hands and feet 10 times, and he has to do tefillah 5 times. So 5 specific times during the when he would change from his big day kahuna to his, when he would go lifnai v'lifnim, and he had to put on, he couldn't wear the golden begadim when he went inside because we don't want a prosecutor to be a defender. So he would wear linen clothing. So in between, when he would switch, he would also do 2 washings of his hand and feet, Kiddush Yadayim Reglaim, and 1 Tefillah. But now we're talking about Shalei Rechitz Yadayim Reglaim, a regular kohen who didn't do his Rechitz Yadayim Reglaim when he came in the morning. So come on, Asher Chukah Chukah Mechutzer Begadim. we learn out it says Chuka Legabi, the requirement that he washes hand and feet. And that tells you from Mechutz Begadim. We have brought this earlier. We also had this Gzeir Shava earlier. Ton Rabban. Kohen Gadol Shalei Tava Shalei Kiddush. A Kohen Gadol that did not do the tefillah, and he didn't do the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, Bein Bagad LeBagad, Ubein Avoida LaAvoida, Va'avad, Avodah Kshera. The Kohen Gadol, who on Yom Kippur, like we just said, there were 10 Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim and 5 tefillahs that the Kohen Gadol was required to do. If he didn't do it, his Avodah is Kshera. V'echad Kohen Gadol, v'echad Kohen Hedge, Shalei Kiddush Yadayim Raglav Shachars, Va'avad Avodah Psula. But if either the Kohen Gadol or the Kohen Hedge did not do the morning of starting to do his Avodah, he didn't do it, Avodah is Psula. Amalei Rav Asher Rabbi Yochanan Michti Chamish Tfilas Vasar Kedushin Deraisa. The Torah says that you have these 5 tefillas and the 10 Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim are all said in the pasuk. B'chukah ksiv, and the Torah says the word chukah. The Torah says v'haisel chukas olam b'chodesh v'esel chodesh tanus nafshechem v'sasu ezra chagav v'gabesaychem. We learn the psukim over there say the 5. We learn out the all of these rechitzas liyakvu. So chukah is a lashon that says that it's ma'akav. So why is this brisa saying if he did it, it's kosher? Amalei amakra ulavesham. He said we have a pasuk that says legabe this the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. Kohen is bad kodesh yilbash mukse bad yuah psa, right? But avnei bad yakum it says bad yisna big the kodesh berachas b'mayim as tori ulavesham. It says he should wash, which is the requirement where we get these rechitzas from, and it says ulavesham and he should wear his begadim. Levisham akav ve'en davar acha ma'akav. From this extra levisha, we already said it's about yilbash. So what does it say levisham? That tells you that only the levisha of the big day kodesh is ma'akev, but the rechitzas are not.
So when we say Shloi Kiddush Yadav Raglav Shachas V'Avad Avodah Psula, is that going on all 10 of them or just the first one?
So we're gonna get back to that. The Gemara is gonna get asked this question. That the same way we're learning out that all of these are not ma'akev, let's say that also the one in the morning is not ma'akev. The one in the morning is still ma'akev. We said in the brisa that the one in the morning is ma'akev. The question is going to be, how are we distinguishing them? Savu part of this is exactly what the Gemara says. He got very excited. That he said a good pshat. He says, don't get so excited. I didn't give you such a great teretz, because it's like a vav written on the Rashi's pshat is it's like a vav written on a bark, on rough bark that you can't, you think you see a vav, but it's really just the undulations of the roughness of the bark of the tree. Means it's not such a good text. Ihachri, the tzafranami. If this was true, if it was as simple as I said, Ulevesham tells you that nothing else is likuva, it should mean the morning, like you just asked, the morning rechitza should also not be ma'akev. And the Brisa had said that the morning rechitza, both of the Kohen Gadol and of a Kohen Hedjed, is ma'akev. Chizkiya answered, Amakra v'hoislem chak olam lo yulzarin l'deroisam. The Torah says, Lagabi the rechitza, since it says since we know there's no pasuk excluding the regular Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim of a Kohen Hedjed from being not ma'akev, so we're saying that the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim of the Kohen Gadol in the morning on Yom Kippur, which is the same as the rechitza that every normal kohen does. So since it's ma'akev bezari, it's also going to be ma'akev by him. So the one in the morning will be ma'akev, but the others that are not, the zari don't have the same thing, they're not ma'akev. Rabbi Yonasan, so that was Chizkiya's teretz. Rabbi Yonasan mehacha comes from here. V'rachzu mimenu Moshe v'Aaron ubanav. That they did a rechitza Moshe and Aaron ubanav davar ma'akev ubanav ma'akev boy davar she'ena ma'akev ubanav ein ma'akev boy. Those things that Aaron, it's not just Aaron, but the things that are ma'akev By his sons, those are makav on him, and those that are not are not. Rabbi Yonasan, my time Allah Yama Kamidacheske. Why didn't Rabbi Yonasan learn from the first pasuk? Amalach, Hu L'Dairis Hu D'Chsev. It says L'Dairoisam. You're saying L'Dairoisam. Those things that are ma'akav L'Dairis also ma'akav va'aron, hakayin for the kayin gadol. It's not telling you that. It's coming to tell you that this din of kiddush yadayim reglayim is not just by the Chanukah Sabayis. It's permanent. It's always required. B'idach, my time mehai. What does he say? What does Nitaka say from the second pasuk? He says the pasuk of I'm sorry, not that one. He says but you need to have enough water in the kir to wash 4 kehanim, because it says Moshe v'Aaron ubanov. Moshe and Aaron, that's 2. Banov, and the 2 banim of Aaron. Now, the problem is this is really before 2 of Aaron's children died, so it really should be 6. So they say it means just the minimum amount of banov, which is plural, so that means a total of 4. So now, Moshe v'Aaron ubanov. Tanaraban, Ketzad mitzvahs kiddush. How did they wash the hands and feet from the kir? He would put his right hand on top of his right foot and his left hand on top of his left foot, and then would wash each one. Because the Torah says, where's the pasuk? It says, it has to be together. Meaning, the Torah says that they were together, that he washes them together. So you have to put his hands on top of his feet when he washes them. He puts his 2 hands on top of each other. And he puts his 2 feet on top of each other. So he has to put his 2 hands, one on top of the other, his 2 feet, one on top of the other, then put the 2 hands on top of the 2 feet. And that's how he washes his hands and feet. He said, you made it so hard, it's impossible to do. The only way to do that is to be sitting on the ground. A person can't put his hands and feet together and stand up like that. It's impossible. Yashalasas came. Said Taka l'chayr, it's a good taina. And what is the chaver Messiah? Oh, I mean, I'm sorry. So it means that someone helps him. He can't stand like that with his hands and feet on top of each other. So he has someone helping him, holding him up. So then now we understand why it's a machlokes. My beinai, what's a machlokes routine? The difference is whether a person could be supported while he's having his hands and feet washed. What's taka the problem? Why is this controversial that someone should hold him up? Let him even be sitting. Let him lie down on the ground, put his hands and his feet all together, and do it like that. Amakra l'sharis. The Torah says as part of the pasuk, this is part of the Yirchatzu Mayim, is that it's part of the Shiras, it's part of the Avodah. And we know that Avodah has to be done standing. So therefore they can't be sitting when they do it. They have to be standing. And the question is, if someone is supporting them, which is Amidim Minat Sad, when someone is supporting them, is that considered that they're still standing or not? That was their machlokes about whether they have to do all 4 hands and feet together, or it could be just 2 at a time, which can be done with the person standing on his own. Tana Rabban. Kiddush yadav v'raglav v'yoyim ein tzarich l'kadosh b'layla. If the kohen washes hands and feet by day, that when the night comes, he doesn't have to he continues doing the avodah, he doesn't have to get a new kiddush yadayim reglayim. But layla tzarich l'kadosh b'yoyim. When the morning comes, then he has to get a new kiddush yadayim reglayim. Divrei Rabbi. This is Rabbi Shita. Shay Rabbi Omer, linas ma'elas b'kiddush yadayim reglayim. just like Lina is the din that you're not allowed to leave an avodah past its time. When it comes to the morning, when you leave over the emurim, when you bring a carbon by day, you have the whole night to be makta the emurim on the mizbech. But then when the morning comes, it's Lina, it's too late to do it. It doesn't ruin the carbon, but the emurim and the chaylev can't be brought anymore on the mizbech. So the same thing would be legabi the kiddush yadayim raglayim. When the morning comes, his kiddush yadayim raglayim expires and he has to get a new one. Rabbi Elazar of Shimon Aimer, he disagrees. It doesn't expire when the morning comes. Tanya idach, another brayso says, if it sounds like very similar machlekes, if the kohen was working on the mizbech the whole night, la'ira, when it comes to the morning, time kiddush yadayim raglayim, divrei Rebbe. Like we said before, Rebbe says in the morning, the lina mayalas and his washing expired, he has to get a new one. As long as he's working, he could continue working. So the Gemara says, what do we need the same machlekes twice? Two machlekes tanoim that are the same machlekes. So if we would just say the first one, become a Rebbe, the pasuk lay, may avoida la avoida. If we said the first one, that's where Rebbe says that you could continue. Because
Rebbe says that you don't. So Rebbe says that you need a new one.
Right, that he says.
Rebbe's the one that holds that you.
But I'm saying when did Rebbe? I would say if we would just say the first one, that would be where Rebbe say. No, Rebbe was the one who said
that you need a new one.
Ain't tzarich l'kach. There's tzarich l'kach. Yeah, he says you need a new one, right? So on that one, Rebbe says you have to get a new rechitza because he stopped between the avodas. That's the first brisa doesn't say anything about continuing to work the whole time. So since he stopped working and it became the morning, so he has to do a new washing. Avabaha. But in the case of the second brisa, I would say the late pasuk that he's continuing to work. He would agree with Rabbi Elazar of Shimon that he could continue working. He doesn't need a new rechitza. And if you just say in the second Baha, come Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, maybe the only Rabbi Elazar of Shimon only said in the second case that he doesn't need a new rechitza. Maybe be might continues working. Tzricha. So my time of the Rebbe. What is the reason for Rebbe? The reason why Rebbe says you need a new rechitza because the Torah says, like we quoted the pasuk, you should wash with water. Comes to approach the mizbech. My time, it says begishtem, and every morning they would bring a new maracha on the mizbech. So it was like he was approaching it anew. So therefore, he needs a new washing in the morning. My time, Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. Why is Rabbi Elazar of Shimon disagree? Because he says when they come, the Torah says when they come to the Beis Hamikdash, that's when they wash. It doesn't. It's not. It's even though it's like a new gisha, but that's not the operative part of the pasuk. When it says bevayim, when he comes, that's when he washes. Why doesn't Rebbe agree that bevayim overrides the begishtam? So when bevayim, I'll call gisha v'gisha. If it would have just said gishtam and we didn't say vayim, but we didn't have the word vayim, I would say each time he comes to the mizbeach, he would need a new rechitza. During the day, each time he does another avodah by the mizbeach, he would need a new rechitza. Because so bevayim is just to tell you that he only has to do it once per day, but Einach he still has to do it every day, every morning. And what does the other man do with gishtam? It says bevayim. What does the gishtam tell you? I would say even when he comes into the Beis Hamikdash, not to do avodah. It says bevayim. Maybe he has to wash his hands and feet. Abir rekanis. How could you think it's talking about without doing avodah? It says l'sharis when he's doing avodah. We need it for a different thing. Shulavish Mekadosh. like we said, every time the Kohen Gadol would go from wearing his begadim, changing his begadim, he would need 2 rechitzas with a tefillah in between. He would wash his hands and feet, be toivel, and then do another washing of his hands and feet. So the question, how the first set of the tefillah should be done? Should he first take off his clothing, or should he do it with his begadim, or should he take off his begadim to do the rechitza? So we learn that from the Gishtam, HaKol Moed Kiddush Sheni, and the second Kiddush that he does after the Tefillah, to Lavish Mekadosh, that he has to be wearing his begadim. The Amakra, Oy Begishtam, meaning Mishchusa Ella Gisha Belvad. When he approaches, that tells you someone who's only thing he needs to do is approach. Someone who has to also get dressed, and then he's going to be ready to approach the Mizbeach. So that's why he uses Begishtam to tell you this din, that the second Kiddush Yadayim Reglaim has to be wearing his begadim. What does it mean that the pasuk says also Lahakta Isha Hashem? That's right. The same pasuk says L'sharis Lahakta Isha Hashem. What does that tell you? I might think it's only an avoida that is ma'akav kapara lahakter isha, but burning the emurim on the mizbeach, or was that lahakter isha? He's coming to the mizbeach. So I might think even avoida that's only a avoida ma'akvus kapara, avoida loy ma'akav kapara loy kamash malon. So that's why we say lahaktir isha, which is not an avoida that is needed. Bringing the emurim is not ma'akav the avoida. Even so, he has to do the richat yadayim v'reglayim. Kiyaser of Dimi Am Rabbi Yochanan. Boy Ilfa. Divri Oime Ein Lina Me'elis B'Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. I will wait till they start the next minyan. The next minyan is supposed to be at 8. Boy Ilfa. Divri Oime Ein Lina Me'elis B'Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. According to the Mandama who says that Lina does not help for Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. That means when the morning comes, it's not going to affect. He's going to be able to. There's Rav Shimon ben Elazar who said that he doesn't need a new Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim in the morning. Make kiyar ma'ushi yifslu. What about the waters of the kiyar itself? Does Lina passel them? Generally, Lina passels things in the Beis HaMikdash, but we said the kohen, after you had rechitza, it doesn't become passel Lina. What about the water that facilitates that kiddush? Since the water is used for kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim, kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim gufaya loy pasel, and after he's makadosh the kohen with it, the kohen doesn't become ruined by the lina loy pasel b'hu lina. So therefore, the same thing, the water will not become pasel. Even the kaddish lu b'kli sharis mifsli will follow the general rule in the Beis HaMikdash that anything that has a level of kedusha from a kli sharis, right? If you put dam into a kli sharis, if you put anything in Kmitza, anything you put into Klisharis, the next morning it becomes possible lina. He also Rav and Amar Rabbi Yimi, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hader Pashat Ilfa, Kemachlekes Bezu, Kach Machlekes Bezu. He says, no, according to the man the Amar, Elazar of Shimon, who says that it doesn't become possible, the Mayim also won't be possible. According to Rabbi, who says that the Kayin becomes possible, certainly the Mayim will also be possible. Amul Fan Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna, Rabbi Ata Imekain, is that taka true? Elachi Amar Rav Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishmei Delfa Kir Shalei Shaku Mi Be'erev Mekadosh Menu La'avodas Laila L'Machar Eina Mekadosh. He says that a kir that was not dipped and didn't have its water replaced at night, you could use it for that night, but the next day it becomes pasul belina. So you see that it's says Dr. Mara of Avinaba.
Even Rebbe Elazar of Shimon would say that it's not good.
Well, that's what the Gemara is going to say. Are we talking about? That's going to be the Gemara's. Are we talking about according to Rebbe Shimon? Or are we going like Rabbi? That's going to be the teretz. Are we saying that the next morning he doesn't wash, not because Ein Makadish, like the way I said it, because it doesn't work, but just saying he doesn't need it, like Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon holds. Or maybe it's saying that the water, the kayin needs a kiddush, but he could use this. He can't use this water because the water has to be replaced because the water gets pasul belina. V'loy pashalan. Umar kapashat lei mifshat, and you're trying to he left it as a shaila. Now you're trying to say a conclusion that it certainly is the case that it passes the mayim the next day. Toshma ben Katan also shneim also dod lakir. I'm going to bring a right to this question. Ben Katan was the name of a person. He made 12 spouts for the kiyar. Said all the kehanim could do it at the same time. And after also muchni lakir, he also made what are those things called that you put on the top of a well that you turn? Like it made it like a crank that he could lower the whole kiyar into the waters, the well underneath the Beis Hamikdash that had clean water in it. So you made of nifsal and belina, so that the water shouldn't become pasul with lina. My law, Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. Isn't this going according to Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon? I guess the first Gemara was l'chayr going only according. So I mixed up. This is where we have this shaila. It was on this raya. It wasn't on the first raya. So you're right that we were assuming that the first thing was going according to Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. Was going according to Rabbi. The question was, do we go like Rabbi and therefore it passes in the day, or do we say that we're talking about Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, and maybe it's a question of whether the kiyar, the mayim of the kiyar passes. But he says on this question, so he's saying that you have to lower it into the water. L'chayra, my love, Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. Aren't we going like Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, who says that the kayin doesn't become pasul, but the question is the mayim does become pasul. So Rabbi, going to Rabbi, that the kayin himself becomes pasul. In that case, certainly the mayim becomes pasul. How could you say it's going according to Rabbi? But the ratio of that brisa that said that they would kasha the water in the kir every night, that's Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, the tani ratio. The kayin gadol will go to his par. The par was standing between the ulam. You know what? This is I don't know. Let's try. The par, if you remember, there was the Kodesh, the Heichel. Then you had the Ulam, which was like an entranceway into the Ulam, and outside was the Chotzer with everything. I think you should have pictures. I have a different. I don't know. I have a picture here also. But anyway, Roishai L'Darim, so the par would stand in that space in between the Ulam and the Mizbeach in the Chotzer. So it's Roishai L'Darim, the cow was facing generally toward the south, like the direction where the Mizbeach was. Upon of Lamayr, its face was toward the west, toward the Heichel. But Kain Amid B'Mizrach, and the Kain was on the eastern side, closer to the Mizbeach. Upon of Lamayr, and his face was facing west. In any case, Man Shamalei Da'amar Ben Ulam Mizbeach Tzafan. Who's the Man Da'amar who says that the tzafan where you're allowed he was about to shech the carbon, the par, that tzafan includes the area in between the mizbech and the ulam. Rabbi Rav Shimon, that's Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. The Tanya, Ezu tzafan, what's the tzafan that you shech the par from? Mikim mizbech tzvayni v'ad kaisel azar tzafayni. From the northern part of the mizbech until the northern wall of the Heichel. I'm sorry, of the Chotzer. Ogeneged kolam mizbeach kulay tzafan. Divrei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. That was Rabbi Yosef Yehuda. He said it was limited. Tzafan is only directly opposite the mizbeach. Well, as Rav Shimon Mosef, apen ulam mizbeach. He says even the part west of that, between the ulam mizbeach, is also considered tzafan. Rabbi Mosef, af makom drisus ragli, kahanim makom drisus ragli Yisrael. He says the other side of the mizbeach, toward the east, even from the entrance of the Chotzer, was considered part of the of tzafon, as long as it's to the tzafon of the mizbeach. On the sides of the heichel, like near past toward the west of where the entrance of the ulam was, on the sides that was excluded according to everyone. So you see, Rabbi Elazar of Shimon holds that in between he's the one who holds that in between the ulam and the mizbeach is kosher. So l'chayra, how could you say that that our brisa is not like Rabbi Elazar of Shimon? Rabbi Elazar, it said that you're doing it between the ulam and the mizbeach. In fact, the Mar of Tizber, Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, he below Rabbi. He's saying it's Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, not Rabbi. Hash the Rabbi out there, Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda Moisef. Rabbi is being Moisef even on Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda. He's saying he can even do toward the east. Other Rabbi Elazar of Shimon like Moisef. He's gonna agree with Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. So it could be Rabbi as well. So Anan Hakamin, Isak Gadech Rabbi, he looked with Makom Drisus Ragli Ham, Makom Drisus Ragli Yisrael. If you hold like it's Rabbi, why are we saying that you're doing it? The Kash, the Gemara wants to say, no, the reason why it can't be Rabbi, why would you do it closer to the Mizbech? You should always do it as far away. It's you're shechting an animal, it should be as far away from the Kodesh as possible. So you should do it all the way near the entrance to the Chatzah. In that case, you shouldn't do it between the ulam and the mizbeach. You should do it opposite the mizbeach itself, because that's further away from the kodesh. So you're saying the reason why Rabbi Elazar of Shimon didn't say that because we don't want the kohen gadol to have to travel. So closer to the kohen gadol. We have the same taina. That could be. It doesn't have to be Rabbi Elazar of Shimon. It could be Rebbe, and he said you should do it close to the entrance because we want the kohen gadol to have to travel so far. We do it as close as possible because of the choshe of the kohen gadol. You do it right by the kodesh.
You didn't want the kohen gadol to strain himself.
Yeah, still with so many avodah, he doesn't have to. He's like carrying. It's like a big avodah to carry the dam. Like they say, it's the avodah kasher sheba migdash. That to carry a bunch of things. So I guess when he was carrying it all in, they wanted to make it as close as possible to where he was bringing it, as opposed to, and that overrode the idea that we wanted to do the shechita as far away from kodesh, because shechita was a messy business. But it's still more important that the kohen gadol shouldn't have to carry it so much afterwards.